For a game, it is at most 5 to 6 hours. This game kicked me up and down the street, and that's with a game genie and the level codes available to hop through the levels. Even then, I still, in a reasonable amount of time, could not beat and finish this game. I wasn't prepared to get a 1995 Spawn PhD to try to beat this, but I will tell you about what I did play. Released in October 1995 for the SNES, developed by, and I'm gonna butcher this, so just bear with me, Ukiyote Company, and published by Sony and Acclaim Entertainment. Acclaim has some great games, by the way. You can still get copies on eBay for around 10 to 30 bucks depending on shipping and all that. This game is based on the comic book character of the same name, which was followed by a movie that is so bad it is good at one point. This game follows Al Simmons, or Spawn, as he traverses the earth and hell to save 13 children, including his stepdaughter, from a terrible fate that could be the end of the world and Spawn himself. The game was met with mixed reviews praising the graphics and combat, but criticizing the unoriginality of the story, and at most times getting half score or a little above half score or a little under half a score, with occasionally, fluxes here and there in between. This Spawn is an SNES game, which maybe I'm biased, but I will always love that visual style. Well, I do love the hyper-realistic graphics of today. The late 80s, early 90s will always have a place in my heart. I just love something about the sprites. And this game is the typical for the era of the side-scroll beat-em-up platformer. The levels look good, the colors look good and bright and distinctive. Each character and enemy sprites are well done, sometimes downright horrifying, and the animations are fluid even if the hitboxes and such other various nuances are not quite there or kind of feel off sometimes. The levels look good, each area is unique from the other one, from the halls of the pharaohs to the depths of hell and back to New York City. Each area has a different feel to it and a different soundtrack and a different vibe. You just know you're in a different area. It doesn't all blend into one kind of like jumbled mess, which is very nice. And I do love the art. Like I said, I love the art and sprites of this era of gaming. It is probably one of my favorite eras of gaming. As Spawn, you have a whole host of abilities. You can walk, run, jump, duck. You also have kicks, punches, screw capes, cape flips, uppercuts, and more. In addition to the melee Spawn has, you also have special powers that when used will drain his life force using different amounts depending on the move. You have teleport, you have a couple other ones that are not coming to me right now. The game depends on the life meter, like always, and once it's out or the in-game timer runs out, it's game over. You have special moves to restore health, as well as hidden items at the end of the level or in the levels, and boss loot drops at the end of the levels to restore your health. There is an unlimited continue system, which is nice because this game is known to be tough or somewhat difficult. I felt like there was parts in there that had some very cheap hits that led to me just taking unnecessary hits, and moments especially where Spawn moves like molasses. And this is with me after putting on the game Genie. There was some cheap moments for me where if I didn't have the game Genie on, I probably wouldn't have made it 2 minutes in the level. There's jumping sections where you're trying to jump, which, oh my god, the jumping is frustrating as it is. When you're trying to jump, you get hit with like a fireball from a firebird you didn't see, and you fall all the way back down, and their fall damage can kill you. You land on something, it can kill you. So I felt like there was just some spots that were unfair completely. Even Spawn's dash feels slow, which should not feel slow. It should be the fastest thing he does. It's his dash. His dash can be sped up. He does kind of like a charging move when you hit one of the attack buttons, and that kind of moves it a little faster, but you also drain your life points when you do that. His slowness affects the timing of your hits. When you think you have time to actually land a couple blows and hits, when any other game, it would lead to you getting hit because he can't duck or move fast enough out of the way. And it led me to getting destroyed like a lot before I put on the Game Genie infinite life code. I will say, without the move list, the special moves would have been impossible to do. Actually, even with the guide there, I still couldn't get some of them. And that's after putting on the Game Genie coat for infinite life and for your special moves not to drain your energy. So it wasn't a matter of not having energy, it's just I could not do some of these moves, and I tried with the D-pad, I tried with the analog sticks, it was just not happening at all. The moves were awesome when you could get them, but it was really like a trial and error. And it was just, ooh, it's like I just want to use the teleporting spell to get up there, and it's just not happening. I'm not, like I said, I used the analog sticks. I was using a modern PS3 controller, so you think the moves would be easier to pull off. Since I have no problem, fighting in Mortal Kombat or using it on other platformers, but I don't know what was wrong with me. The music and sounds are very typical of the time period. It's general kind of like fighting music soundtrack. You got the punches sounds, you got the kick sounds, you got some like boss sounds, no voice acting. The sounds do get a little annoying after a while, but that's only because sometimes you have to replay the level like 6 times. There's, like I said, no voice acting, just scrolling text throughout the cutscenes, but that doesn't mean they're bad at all. It sounds great for a 16-bit system, but you're not going to be looking up the soundtrack when the game is done, like I find myself doing with a lot of games. Like, give me the Journey soundtrack any day. That thing is calming. Final Fantasy soundtracks, God of War soundtracks, Mass Effect soundtracks, but this one is just like, keep it away from me. There's really not much to this game. The story is the typical say person or persons A to stop the world-ending evil or save yourself. In this case, it's both. It is given credit by some for being almost religiously faithful to the comics, which I guess is nice to see. I haven't read Spawn since I was really young, and I used to take my cousin's comics. Although some people do say that this game is nothing close to the comics. I would love to sit down and read some Spawn comics, especially the older ones, now that the new movie is coming out. I hope the new movie's gonna be good. I really do. A reviewer for Next Generation was even more scathing, and this is probably one of the meanest and funniest reviews at the same time that I've read about all these games I've been playing recently. It suffers from problems with just about everything. A lack of speed, poor play control, and lousy graphics, which I personally don't agree with the lousy graphics. I quite enjoy the graphics, but then again, I said I will always be a fan of this style of gaming, so this game is a completely generic attempt at video games, and it's less enjoyable than a skin rash. He or she, I don't know, went in on this game. Like, ooh, that was harsh. Now, while I didn't enjoy the whole game or get to finish it, it wasn't that bad. It was just frustrating. And I don't have time to sit down and learn the systems and the ways to avoid the cheap hits, especially against anti-spawn. And though you may love this game, it's short, maxing out for some people about 7 to 6 hours, or for other people's 2 to 4. Those must be the Kung Fu masters. That does include running around and finding a lot of secrets. This game is just, it's good, but it's not that good. It's a classic, but it's not that classic. I don't know. I love the old school NES, SNES, Genesis, Atari, DOS era of gamings. And I've enjoyed going back and playing this era recently, and playing things that I either didn't have time to, the money to, or was too young to play at the time. This is a game my cousin had, and he never let me play it. Now I see why. It's not violent compared to games of the same era like Splatterhouse or even games of today. But it's just bone hard. It is hard. Combat is my biggest issue here. It feels so slow, so imprecise. It throws your timings off because you're trying to think of the same timings that most games of the era had, which were fast, snappy, and this just does not have those kinds of timings. And don't get me started on the jumping up the walls. The jumping is so frustrating because you can't see half the enemies are up there. There was a couple times, even with the codes I had, that I would be jumping and I would get hit by a firebird or something spitting something down, and I would fall all the way back down to the level. Now, if there was a Game Genie code where I could just take the hit and keep on going, I'm pretty sure I would have finished this game. But the fact that you get hit, it stops you, it knocks you back every single time for a good probably 2 seconds before spawn gets up again is just so frustrating and so unfair sometimes. A lot of, especially I found in the Hall of Pharaohs area, was a lot of trying to remember where things are, a lot of trial and error, and like I said, I didn't want to spend my next 3-4 months trying to get a Spawn 1995 Todd McFarlane Spawn, the video game PhD. I'm not having it, and I'm not gonna do it. That being said, I did enjoy what I did get to play, even though I coded my way through it, and I will admit that it was fun to see the work that went into the creativity that went into it. While I'm not sure if I want to add this game to my personal collection, I do think it's worth seeking out for a bit of fun. And I don't know where exactly it falls on the abandonedware scale, if it could be considered abandonedware, which is basically nobody's touching it anymore. Nobody really knows who has the rights to it, or the companies are derelict and they can just upload. It's not legal, but nobody knows what to do with these state of the games. I would recommend, if you're down for a good challenge, and I hate to make the comparison like a SNES Dark Souls, but no, not really Dark Souls, like that kind of hard way, this is definitely one of those games. Now, my feelings about this game is it has potential. It had a lot of potential. It came out in 95. I was 2 years old, I think. It has a lot of potential. It had a lot of potential. For me, it wasn't very creative. It wasn't very original. That's what a lot of the reviewers said. There was really nothing to the game. And just the fact that it's so hard makes you not really want to get into the game. Like, I like Spawn. I like the character design. I like the comic style. I like how gritty and dark it was before. This was like before we had the dark Batman that came to the screens, and before everything was like super gritty, we had Spawn. Spawn was dark, gritty. And this game is kind of dark, gritty, but it's so hard that it's enjoyable. And while I am a fan of a really good challenge, this is just not worth it for me. I would say, play this if you want, but be prepared to be frustrated beyond belief. A lot like a Dark Souls, just be frustrated beyond belief. But, those are just my feelings, y'all.